Hi, everybody, and welcome to Turf Talk Down Under. And we've got a very special international guest today. Vaishnavi Sundar is with us. Now, you might recognise the name because Vaishnavi was the director of and producer and director of Dysphoric, which was a 4-part documentary that many of us have seen that talks about gender ideology. And it's really good peaking material for people who don't really understand what it's all about. But this is your second film on the topic. Is that right?
That's correct. Thank you so much for having me. Since we've interacted on Twitter for a long time, and it's always such a great pleasure to see each other, even on the computer, face to face, and be able to talk like this. It means a lot to me. So yes, on the topic, this will be my second film. I have made films in the past which are centered around female experiences and things like that. But on the topic, yes, this is my second film, and it's called Behind the Looking Glass. It is about the experiences of wives, partners of males who have, claimed to be a woman or wanted to transition socially, medically, etc., and the effect it has on the families, the wives and the children in particular.
Yeah,
that's the film.
I was saying before that this is quite personal for me. It's impacted my family, and my father-in-law at the age of 65 suddenly decided that he was a woman, and that's had a devastating impact on my family. My daughter hasn't seen her grandfather since. My mother-in-law passed away shortly after he left because he left her destitute. And the thing that was the most troublesome thing for us was the shame associated with that. Even 10, 15 years ago, if you said, my husband left me because he wanted to become a woman, people would laugh and say, oh, poor you poor thing. What a crazy thing for him to do. Whereas now it's like, how dare you not support him?
Yes. And they go to an extent further where they have made it legally impossible for us to not affirm their identities. You've probably seen the Crown Prosecution Service tweet where they're talking about domestic violence, but the roles have reversed. Now they're saying that the wife would be the domestic abuser if the wife does not instantly affirm or set aside funds for the husband's transition surgeries, hormones, and things like that. I sometimes feel like I have woken up and somehow gone through some sort of a vortex, and I'm in some sort of a parallel universe where all of this is so twisted, because it does not feel normal or does not feel right. So I don't know how else to come to terms with the fact that we live in these crazy times without coming up with such outlandish rationale of why this might be.
Yeah. And I think, some of the things that these men get away with, that if we said they were men, people would still raise an eyebrow or disapprove. But as soon as you add, trans woman to it, like everyone sort of makes excuses for them, they really have become like a protected class.
Yes, they have, and they have successfully done their lobbying, and there is a lesson to learn from the way they have lobbied. I mean, the motivation and the end goal is all twisted and misogynistic, of course, but there is a lesson to learn for us from the way they have gone about their whole advocacy, which is just bulldozed into every existing rights and have made sure that they trampled on every single individual and come on top of it and claim to be the most oppressed. This is the most funniest thing, the way they have come all the way up, mostly white, middle-aged, very wealthy men, and turned around looking down at all of us in the pecking order and saying they are the most oppressed. And this is the most twisted visual that one can ever come up with. And they've successfully managed to do it. And they have gotten away with, abuse, both in terms of abuse to the wife and abuse to the child. Some have gotten away with rapes. Many have gotten away with some of the most depraved sexual acts that in real world, if we had a legal system that is indeed friendly for women and provided legal recourse for women, all of these men would probably be in jail for some crime or the other. But none of them are in jail. And in fact, some of the most violent criminals, as you, I'm sure, know, are now seeking to self-identify as female and are continuing their criminal activity inside female prison estate.
Yeah.
I mean, it is baffling.
It is. It is. We've got a famous serial killer here who murdered 3 women, terrifying story. Paul Denya's his name, and he transitioned in prison, spent millions and millions of taxpayer funds trying to access medical transition. He was denied, but like he just made it really, really problematic for everyone. But now that he has a potential for parole after serving 30 years, guess who's decided that he's Paul again? Now, if in the very unlikely event that he gets parole, then he will definitely transition back to being a woman, because why wouldn't he? The scary thing for us, though, is that the Premier of our state, who basically decides whether this guy gets parole or not, is refusing to commit because he's in a catch-22, because he's got a serial killer who gets out, who will reoffend, but he's got to placate the trans lobbyists who say you're discriminating against this serial killer who murdered 3 women in the most brutal and sadistic way possible. You're discriminating against him because he's transgender.
Unbelievable. You know, so it hasn't gone to the extent of, you know, men murdering and seeking female identity, but there are now instances, even in countries like India, where men are trying to use this trans ideology as a cover for their crimes. In that, there's this very famous case, not covered by mainstream media, but, you know, people like us, we snoop these out of the internet, right? A man who had gone for this corporate retreat or something like that, a bit away for like a weekend or something like that. And there is this woman, his colleague, who is apparently wheelchair bound. He molested her, groped her, and she filed a complaint, and the court heard the case. And he came to the court wearing a sari and said that he is actually identifying as female, and the fact that he touched her and everything was like a sister. So it essentially isn't groping or molesting or something like that, because he is apparently female. In this particular instance, the court asked him to just, you know, buzz off, like that. He didn't have any ground to stand on. But recently, just 2 days ago, a man in a neighboring state wore the full body burqa and traveled in public transportation, because public transportation usage is free for females. So, you know, these are examples where you can see how they're trying to use this and inching into our rights and our space as a way to somehow feel entitled to it. It's as if they can't stand the idea that women can have something for themselves, which is exclusive and on the basis of sex. They just cannot stand it. And I can imagine, considering how much of sexual violence happens in this country, that this is going to just escalate into a place where things are just going to be so irredeemable. When the West would have moved on, they would have probably they would probably be tackling something else, some other monster at this stage. But this gender ideology would have the ramifications in Global South for a lot longer, many years, decades, you know, until this gets sorted out over here, because men just need any excuse to personally violate a woman's space, a woman's body, a woman's mind.
Yeah. Well, we've even got it here. We're in probably one of the most progressive regions in the world as far as this ideology is concerned. And our Premier, you know, we're broke because of COVID. We're relatively broke, you know, for Australia. And, you know, he's giving the little money that we have towards these LGBTQI plus AA, whatever organisations, providing, you know, services specifically for transgender individuals. So now these guys have got a choice of men's services. They've got a choice of trans services. They've got a choice of LGBTQ plus services, but they still want female-only services. So men have got 4 options and women have got 0 to have a single sex space. It is just ridiculous. And we have the usual handmaidens, you know, mostly women of the left of relative privilege, dictating the terms to poor and working class women, you know, because I have my background is, you know, first as a survivor, but then I moved into working in crisis services, providing crisis services, coordinating, you know, intake for crisis services. So that's my background, is in female only spaces. And on a personal and on a professional level, I understand the need for them. And on an academic level, because I've studied, certain aspects of psychology. I'm not a psychologist, obviously, but, like I really feel the need for female-only spaces. And, this is such an intrusion on women generally, but particularly the most vulnerable women, survivors. It is just so horrific. And the interesting thing, the way that these sort of elites get away with it is because they generalize and say it's the same as gay rights, which it isn't. But they also have this thing that it's about those trans people that we all used to know, the dysphoric homosexual who, was so uncomfortable in their body that they really were only relieved by medical transition. But, they would try and blend in. They didn't try and stand out. And these autogynephiles are getting away with what they're getting away with. These heterosexual autogynephiles that are fixated on women are only getting away with all of this because these elites are saying, oh, they're the same as the gay men. And they're not. They're nothing like them.
Yes. If tables were to turn and if women were a threat to males and if a woman identifying as male were to barge into a space that is considered exclusively for male, for example, and if that were a threat in a universe, they would put their foot down and say no to it. And they would make sure that every precaution is kept in place, every measure is in place to make sure that their privacy, their segregated space is completely untarnished, so to speak, by any intruder. But it is only because it is women whose space that is in the offing right now. That's why there is absolutely no regard, because it has never been important that women's space or women's freedom, women's interests to be taken into consideration. I think this can be very well elucidated with the example of how in the world in general there is racism, and a lot of people are personally affected by it, or even if they are not, they're personally against it in a very profound, strong manner. They're anti-racist people. They think it is wrong. They think it is absolute. It's a human right violation. They feel these strong feelings about it. The same way in countries like India, Nepal, and Bangladesh, we have the caste system, which is one of the most profoundly disturbing social hierarchical model to ever exist, that categorizes people and uses it as an excuse to oppress people. Now, there are a lot of people in India as well who are dead against the caste system, myself included, of course. It is wrong. It has to be completely destroyed. But that all of these people that are interested in putting an end to racism and casteism are doing that because there are male members who are affected by racism and casteism. But the moment you talk about sexism, the moment you talk about misogyny, even within the caste hierarchy, not a word. I think it makes so much sense. The way the world works is back when you said just now that, you have so many options to choose from. You have an exclusive trans option to choose from. You have male option to choose from. But no, you want only the option where females are using. So that their motivation is in infringing upon our rights rather than wanting to just exist or just be, or we just want to live our life as a peaceful, trans identifying males. It doesn't matter. We don't, all of these really vile jargons that they use. There is no, there is, if your feminism is not trans exclusive, is not feminism at all, and things like that. I mean, these are all things that they say to gaslight you into somehow accommodating them in your space. Like the J.K. Rowling situation that happened, where she created the space exclusively for female. They want that. They want that. There is already an Edinburgh Rape Crisis Center which welcomes trans-identified males into it. They don't want that. It speaks volumes. The evidence is all around us. We really don't have to try very hard to come and try and understand these things. Anybody who's pretending to not understand or still thinks that this is some sort of a civil rights movement is just fooling themselves. Yeah,
I think that most of them know. I think they know that they're so afraid to speak up. The cognitive dissonance, So did you know many trans widows before, or did you meet a trans widow and decide to make a film about it? Or was it something you were curious about, or? No.
Yeah, back when I was making Dysphoric, when I was speaking with females who identified as males, and then detransition to going back to their female names, female experiences, etc., etc. You can't really transition. It's not a thing. But to just make it clear for the audience. So when I was speaking with them, there were occasions when some of them mentioned their partners. Many of them were lesbians. They talked about their partners and about how they felt bad that they were going through with this, and that some relationship had just frizzled off because they just couldn't stand to bear to watch them go through with that, because it is just such a painful experience. And they were deluding themselves into thinking that they were going to achieve something at the end of this race or something like that. But the partners always knew that there is no coming back from this. Yeah. So their relationship had fallen apart. And at that time, there was something in the back of my mind that, oh, interesting. This is interesting. So not only are females who are opting to transition affected directly by it, but there are females that are affected by it indirectly by close quarters, by being in close quarters with other people that are transitioning in the family. Like in our film, in Dysphoric, I had also spoken with parents, right? Parents, how they watch their child go through this whole thing, how she came out of it and things like that. It is very profound, the ramifications of the family members, the immediate family members. It's not talked about at all. And this Dysphoric was over, everybody watched it, etc., etc. And then I was thinking, what can I do now? What can I do now? Obviously, it has to be in the topic, but then what can I do now? And then I stumbled upon a couple of stories in Transwidows Voices website. And I got in touch with Tinsel, who runs the website. And I was at Philia 2 years ago, where I met her in person. And in the meantime, it was just incidental that somebody had watched Dysphoric and they had written me an email saying that they had watched it and they really appreciated it. And then they said that their husbands happen to also go through with this. Perhaps you'd like to make a film about it. It was just like mentioned to me. And because I never stopped thinking about it, and the pressure of making Dysphoric was so overwhelming that went on a back burner. But then I sort of decided to really think about it. Like, is there a potential for this? Because you can't just get away with saying, I'm going to make a film on this, but you have nobody who is in the film to talk about it, right? So there are all of these other variables and challenges that I need to consider: funding, my time, priorities, life, everything. So I had to really be careful about whether I want to dive into this whole thing. Then it turns out that I did decide to make a film on this topic, and I started researching about it. And I was a little skeptical in the beginning whether I will have enough women wanting to speak about this in the film. But it turns out I had to stop people from getting in touch with me because I had spoken with enough women. I mean, it was such a heartbreaking thing to say that I really do not have the bandwidth, because I'm just one woman, right? I'm just one woman. And I also have a threshold as to how much of this depraved sexual bullshit that I can sit down and take over and over again, right? So I spoke with 40 women, and I'm sure there are a many more women out there with this experience who are, because I know when the teaser was released on YouTube, there are so many women who are commenting underneath saying that this is their experience as well, and that if I wanted, I could get in touch with them, etc., etc. So it's not some isolated incident where these poor little men who had this experience from a very young age just want to live their life. No, it's not that. What really baffles me, though, is how am I the only first person to make a film on this subject? How? Because this has been happening for so long. I have women in my film who are in their 60s and 70s, and this happened to them when they were in their 20s and 30s.
Wow.
We went past 4 decades now, and it didn't occur to anybody that there is this demographic, a human interest in this demographic that just completely went unexplored, all because it is women who are the affected party here. And nobody wants to touch the topic, especially now, because, whatever happens to political correctness, you can't speak the wrong word or you would be banished into, the PC jail or something like that, or you lose your job or, your livelihood, and things are serious right now. So I thought if they hadn't spoken about it then, they're never going to speak about it anymore. So it's up to us feminists, as usual, to take this up and, scream about it. And I thought film is what I can do. Writing about things is what I can do. And as one person who has already been isolated from friends and family because of my political views, I thought, what better way to spend my life doing advocacy for women's rights than make films on topics that nobody wants to talk about. So then it just happened that, it all came together. I can't even begin to tell you how challenging it is to make a film. I mean, one has an idea, but it is so challenging to do this in a political climate like this when you're already public and outspoken about your views. Nobody wants to work with you. Nobody wants to even have you email them anymore because it's just too icky for them.
I have a similar effect on people.
Like your email in my inbox, I need to throw acid on my computer right now. It's just a reaction. It's just so, I don't know. It's
and all your
sometimes
skills
makes me
and
laugh.
talent. Yeah, and you've got these skills and these talents that are proven, and none of that matters. It's all about your views
and the history of your filmmaking experience, the body of your work. It doesn't matter. The path you have walked, it doesn't matter how many women you have helped, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. Right now, they don't want to have any association with you. It's like they want to wait until a time that it is okay or cool to say that, she's my friend.
Yes.
I'm going to turn around and say, no, you fucking are not. You are not my friend. You were never my friend. You never had my back. And
that's right.
And as you do too, probably. But we have a lot of these people, in our lives who we are never going to forgive, sis. I think I will never be able to forgive these people. How could you possibly just let this happen and not say a word?
That's right.
And on top of that, pile on somebody who does. Like, this is one of the most bizarre experiences I've had as an adult. And I have, lived my life to a large extent as an atheist, and I have seen religious people fight atheist people in this country. It's a huge war. And I have seen now that religious people and people who don't believe in God, etc., can coexist, can even share a stage and have civil conversations, And this is atheism, God we're talking about, right? It's supposed to be like the most sanctimonious, and it's sacrilege to talk anything against it. And now, gender, which is akin to a religion after all, you can't even have two people with opposing views in the same room, let alone in a same Twitter space. People want to boycott because it's triggering them, or they're dangerous, or really, I'm just a woman. I'm just a woman.
They're meant to be the tolerant left. The tolerant left are the ones doing it. It's not the far right religious extremists. They're like, oh no, I'll stand next to you. We've got the same vision on this single issue. I'll stand next to you. And we're like, oh, we don't really want to. But the left are like, get away. They're like so violent and so brutal towards people, particularly towards people from their own side.
Yes,
because
indeed.
They hate dissenters the most.
Yes, they will immediately boycott you, that they will say that you were never on their side, and they will immediately label you as some sort of a closet right-winger or literal descendant from Hitler and Mussolini and things like that. They call us Nazi and fascist and whatnot. Like, it's funny because where's your creativity in insults? Like, say something new. Like, say something that I actually am. Like, why are you just miming everything that the rest of the world is saying? It's really funny. It's as if when they yell at me and when they're pissed off at me, all I can do is laugh.
Yeah.
Because I just find it hilarious that they have absolutely no ground to stand on, and yet they're screaming at the top of their voice like a cartoon, saying I'm infringing upon their rights. And I'm wondering, which rights exactly? Which rights do you not have?
Yeah, and you're the person that's standing up for the woman who's been predated on. You're standing up for the woman who's had her life completely smashed and decimated and is too vulnerable and too broken to actually articulate for herself. And you're standing up for her, the trans widow, or whoever it is that's been impacted by this ideology. And that's how they're treating you. What is that doing to that person that's been harmed?
Oh, absolutely. If they're doing that to me, I can't even imagine the dangers and the isolation and the vilification that the women themselves are going through for not just saying no to, in most cases, it is rape, saying no to rape, but to say that maybe you'll enjoy it if you give it a chance. Or to say that to women, my goodness. I mean, we used to have feminist movements where we advocated for domestic violence against women, right? We have advocated for it for decades, and we finally have some rudimentary legal recourse where women could go to court and say that, my husband's thrashing me, like, look at me. And then maybe the court, if you're lucky, would punish him, or would, you'd find some recourse, hopefully. But it is the same exact scenario. He is raping you, he is hitting you, he is abusing your children, he is threatening to cut you off of financial safeguarding and everything. He's threatening you to take children away. All of this is like domestic violence 101. Yeah. And then you just sprinkle this rainbow unicorn shit on top of it, and suddenly none of that is crime egregious enough for the court to do anything about it. Yeah. I mean, I have personally never seen a complete hijack across all strata of the society, like law, media, academia. I have never seen it. It does not, like I said, most of the time I wake up and I'm thinking I've just gone into some vortex and I'm in some universe filled with aliens or something like that. It doesn't make sense to me. And I meant to say that the isolation and the vilification that these women are going through is never going to go away. No. The 70-year-old, 60-year-old women that I'm talking about right now, for whom it happened when they were in their 20s, they've lost their entire life trying to fight against this ideology. And in their 60s and 70s, they're still having to put up with these, I don't know, infants on Twitter who call these 70-year-old matriarchs some foul-mouthed words, and it's just heartbreaking to me. I mean, come on. What have you done? What have you done? So you say you fight for trans rights. What have you done for trans rights exactly, other than shitting on women who are standing up for their own rights? It's like that thing, no, sis, when you want to advocate for breast cancer, for example, you like breast cancer awareness, create awareness, make women go get their checkups and everything. There will always be some guy who come and say, but what about prostate cancer? Men also get prostate cancer. Fine, advocate for it. Yeah. This free labor and this free expectations and this entitlement that women will do the job for them, clean up after them, is not going to change at all, even if they are the ones that are wearing the dresses right now. Yeah.
The thing that frightens me is that, that this is global. It's the experience of women in India, where you are. It's, the experience of us here in Australia, and women all over the world are having this global gaslighting, this global male violence against women. And you can't call it that anymore, because it's been, this gender thing has come about at the end of a process that began sort of 20 years ago, where male violence against women started to be called family violence, started to be called gender violence. Like, sort of like the meaning of the words has very gradually morphed and changed so that what it actually is no longer like you can't recognize it. And they've also put actual men, into female-based services. And and we've just been there going, no, you can't do this, and we've been completely ignored. My friend and I run a social group for women who've experienced family violence, specific to mothers. We have been infiltrated by trans rights activists. A non-binary woman insisted that we were discriminating against her as a non-binary mother, but selectively, if you're not a woman, how can you be a mother? So there was this big kerfuffle. So we had this we sort of splintered our group. And we've been trying to get funding, but there's a box that you have to tick in the funding, in the grants, that if you that you have to admit people from the LGBTQI++ community. And it says that if you don't, then any grants that any of that money that you've spent, you will owe back. And I can't tick that box. And we're not in any position to become a not-for-profit and just be supported, from the community. We're reliant on funding. And the state government, the same state government that introduced self-ID, is the one who determines how all these groups are funded. So women's groups are just shutting. They're shutting. They're either including males, and as far as I'm concerned, any man who wants to be in a female-only service is a predator. They're either including men, or the group's shut because they can't be funded, or women are doing the work for free. We're having these groups on our kitchen tables, and we're providing the resources out of our own pockets. And there's a lot of that going on. We're in a homelessness crisis here at the moment. I've got a woman living in a caravan with her kids in my driveway. I'm fortunate I have a big driveway, but that's just what women do.
Solution.
Well, they're relying on that. They're relying on us going back to what we were doing in the 50s, 60s and 70s and before, because we can't just let people, suffer. And they're relying on the fact that women will kind of, we'll carry the burden for society. It's so sick. It's so sick and twisted that we've regressed so far. And I think these trans identifying autogynephiles and the trans widows they leave behind are so symbolic of what's happening, that we've got these malignant narcissists that are addicted to pornography. They've become sick, mentally sick, and yet they abuse their families, and the woman is victim blamed. The impact on the children's completely ignored. They're silenced and shoved away, and then this person's, not only is he not called out for the abuse, but he's deified as some wonderful person. It is, and that secondary gaslighting. And this is what I try and tell people. Quite often it's not the abuse. It's the fact, it's not even the fact that you're not believed. It's that secondary level of abuse that people not only don't believe it, but they believe the other guy, the perpetrator over you. That is more painful than the abuse itself. And there's a lot of that happening.
Yes, absolutely. Every single trans widow that I've spoken with have said that they don't have any sort of a support system within their friends and family circles anymore, because they're just squeamish about it, because they don't know what to say, because they just want to do the right thing, be the right thing. I mean, be the right thing, do the right thing, stand up to your friend, right? Don't just pander to an ideology that you don't even fully understand. But that's what has happened. They've been isolated. They have no support system. Thankfully, these women have found each other, and that's the only solace they have in these really dark times. They're feeding off of each other's experiences and trying to sort of make those amends. And they're like, "Oh, that worked for you. Oh, let me try that with my son, because he's so aggrieved by the fact that his father doesn't visit him anymore. Oh, that worked for you. Let me try that." That's how they have constantly been trying to survive, and how formidable they are. That they are now managing as a single mother, running a house, taking care of children, helping other women in that crisis mode as well. What sort of courage that is beyond comprehension, right? For you to be at the pits, but not letting go of another woman's hand while you're trying to come up. That's fucking mental. That's what these women are doing to each other. They're making sure that they don't leave each other's hands. And that's what radical feminists are trying to do as well.
Yeah.
See, even though you have had this experience where your father-in-law did that to your poor mother-in-law, for many of us, there is no direct relationship with this ideology at all. There is no dog for us in this fight. And yet we do it because we know that it will come to us. It will bite us in the behind. It is just about time that you blink and it happens to you. Another thing that you mentioned about the language being taken away, where we no longer have the means to even describe what is going on with us, and that's the brilliance of this ideology, because they make everything vague, they make everything ambiguous, they make it so that in legal terms it is vague enough that they use it to help them get their way. But when we try to use the same loophole to say, well, why are you using sex and gender interchangeably? When we try to use it, they say, no, in this case, it is gender identity, so you have no rights. So it's always the balance is always sort of weighing on their side. Another thing I wanted to mention is about the way drastically it affects women that are belonging to further disenfranchised communities, that you, as you keep going down the pyramid, right? They call me, well, I'm born in a family which is privileged, so I belong to a caste that is usually which is the oppressed caste, although I'm not oppressing anybody. But by nature, belonging to a certain caste gives you certain privileges that I cannot deny. You're born with it, you die with it, and you enjoy the freedom and the privileges of it while you're alive. The same is true for those who don't have that privilege. You're born with it, you suffer your whole life without any privileges, and then you die with it. You can never take caste out of a person whatsoever. Now, this being the scenario, all of these anti-caste advocates that used to be like good-natured feminist organizations that are trying to, rehabilitate women from violence in their caste-riddled families and things like that, are now completely silent on this topic because, like you said, they have had to check that box. Otherwise, there is no funding. And the remaining one or two women that are doing these things, in the kitchen table and things like that, will eventually burn out. Yeah. What if there is no longer any more space in your driveway? What then? There are thousands and thousands and thousands of women waiting for help. What do you do then? So if you really think about it structurally, if you're going down the pyramid, you're stripped of all of your privileges. Who's going to be the most affected at the end of all of this? Isn't it the woman at the very bottom of the pyramid who is going to be somebody who is from a lower caste? Yep. How can you call yourself an anti-caste movement and support transgender ideology, which is stripping every single right of this woman who you claim to support? Yeah. And when I speak about that woman, they say that I don't understand how caste works because I am too privileged. I am too blinded by my own caste. Yeah. This is the way they try to gotcha you. They say that you're white, you don't understand. You're upper caste, you don't understand. You're rich, you don't understand. Yeah. Well, I do. You just don't want to give me a choice. You don't want to give me a voice.
I get a lot of shit for defending Indigenous women. Like, we're a colonised nation, and the most affected by this ideology are, Aboriginal women who've been wrongfully imprisoned. Like, they are the most affected by this. They're in jail on fines with male rapists. We've even had actually a prominent trans widow put me onto this. Her ex-husband, who she despises, was recently in a Western Australian prison on sex offences and boasting on Facebook about how nice the Aboriginal women were to him.
How dare.
Yeah. And yet if I speak up, especially towards some, prominent, in Aboriginal politicians, if I speak up about this, they just shoot me down and go, you're a racist. And I'm going, oh, I'm a racist and I'm advocating for Black women in prison. What are you talking about? But that's all they've got. That's all they've got, because they can't look at it while they're over there being, while they're virtue signalling that they're anti-fascist and anti-racist and all of that stuff. They can't.
It's not even like
you've got facts.
Yeah, and it's not even like when you bring in an Indigenous woman to say that don't infringe on her rights, they're going to listen to her. They're not going to listen to anybody. So if the problem with you speaking about it was that you're not Indigenous and you don't know what it is, okay, I bring an Indigenous woman, would you listen to her? No.
No, they wouldn't.
You just don't want to listen. So these are just excuses that you make. You want me to go back to the kitchen, make you sandwiches until you die? That's what you want. So in order for you to get that end goal, you will do anything to shut us up.
It is a social control. This whole ideology is about social control of women,
and that's how they get into the minds of young women as well. Yeah, because they have gaslighted them into supporting their own destruction. Yeah, somehow making pornography empowering, prostitution a job and a choice and all of those things. That's where it stems from.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another example. I've got a friend, who's my age, 50s, who's currently working in a brothel, because we've just had prostitution deregularized here, so now the government can tax brothels, right? So I've got an insider in the industry, and I'm still discredited because my evidence is anecdotal. But how much more real can you get than someone actually working in a brothel? You know what I mean? Like, no matter what you say, no matter how good your argument is and who you present, they will always argue the opposite. It is such a frustrating fight. But you know, the bonds that that I've noticed between women, like I said, we've spoken to trans widows, you know, detransitioners, you know, the bonds that are forming between women are so encouraging. Yeah, I think your film is much needed, because I think there's a lot of women out there who are uncomfortable with their partners, particularly consumption of pornography. They're uncomfortable with their partner's kinks and some of the things that they're into. From what you've learned from Trans Widows, do you think porn is the biggest driver for this, or something else apart from, you know, control? But do you think pornography plays a big role in this?
Pornography definitely plays a big role in the kind of women that they want to become. Yeah, these men. So the hypersexual nature of their version of a woman is very evident. And this very strange obsession towards wanting to be a lesbian woman is also something to think about, because apparently, I don't know, I suppose lesbians have managed to exist without any male influence in their life whatsoever. And there is no way a man can control a lesbian's life, because she's opting to not coexist or cohabit with a man. She is sexually in intimate relationship with another woman, and that, I suppose, really irks them. So they believe that being a lesbian is somehow the most purest form of being a woman, and that's why they force their wives into becoming lesbians, because apparently they are now women, therefore their relationship is lesbian. So a large majority of these women talk about how much pornography that these men watch, and not just any pornography. Many have detailed some of the most grotesque things that the wives have found on the computers. It's just not even attempting to hide it anymore. It's just there. It's just there on the computers. And children, animals, men who have male body intact but with really humongous breasts, teenage girls. You name every depraved things that would essentially put you in jail. These men have in their possession. And yet,
hey, I see it on Twitter. I see, if I go onto the profile of one of those creeps that's following me and I click on who they follow, all of that filth is right there on Twitter.
Absolutely. There are videos of actual sex acts in Twitter and Instagram and everything. Nobody cares to get rid of that. And yet you say he to a man who wants to be called a she, your account is gone. Just like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you are a source of trying to make a few other women enlightened about this issue. Therefore, you're a threat. Yeah. But so if I silence you, I mitigate the damage by you not spreading it to maybe 3 other women, who then might spread it to 3 other more. So if I cut you off, I sort of cut your channel of reaching out to all of these women. That's why our posts are getting shadow banned. Nobody can see it on the timeline and things like that. There are ways to silence women. Men know this at the back of their head. They just know how to do it. And that's why when the men in these relationships dress up in their female attire, it all starts very sneakily, right? First, it will just be like inside their male clothes, and then slowly they just, I don't know, out of frustration or just wanting to get them off their backs, they just say, okay, do whatever you want. And then it starts in the bedroom. And there was this case of one woman who said he would refuse to turn on the heating during peak winter if she doesn't do what he is asking for in the bedroom. And those are things replete with sodomy and other things that she can't even use words to detail. So there is a profoundly strong influence of pornography in all of these women's lives. But there are some exceptions in that, some women believe that it's not a pornified version of females that they're trying to become. Some believe that their husbands are just not able to be the masculine man. And they believe that this is somehow their route to redemption, where they can no longer feel the need to be a male all the time, to be this machismo, macho man all the time. They believe some are also going through this because of that pressure of still the harm is being done by patriarchy. It's not women's fault. It's not women telling him to be like all buffed up and, go to the gym and, be this manly man or anything like that. Women don't care. Women care for the person that they are on the, I don't want to say on the inside because that in this ideology would be very wrong. But, men with feelings and emotions and all of those things, not the, nobody wants that. And yet, that is still a very small percentage of women that feel like that about their partners. But a large majority of them have all got this very accelerated pornographic use. It started as a teen, and then now there is nothing that would shock them. So they're constantly chasing that high of finding the next thing to shock them. They travel through some of the most darkest corners of the web to seek gratification, I suppose. I don't know. I can't comprehend pornography. I can't understand men getting off on watching abuse. I can't comprehend it. But
nothing makes me less horny than porn. Honestly, Absolutely. It is disgusting. Like I can completely tune off to it because I just find it so untitillating.
It is one of those times when we have to do some research or something that you stumble upon something because you want to read about it.
Yeah,
I have gone through some of the most anxious days. You would have watched that. You would have seen like a second of it. You tried to avoid it, but you just saw a second of it. And the rest of the day, I'm dealing with palpitations. Like I see something like that, even for a brief second, I get palpitations. I'm anxious. My palms are sweaty. I don't know what is wrong. And then I realize, could be that. Sometimes it goes on for days. This effect it has on me of even watching like a glimpse of what they're doing to those women. And I, for the life of me, can't understand how men can, like you said, porn would make me unhorny.
Yeah. I was going to say, just completely like I've thought about porn and now my brain's gone. This film, you're in the process, but you're not quite finished. Yeah. You need funding. You need to bring people in to finish it off.
Yes.
This is an important film. How can we help get this film finished?
Yeah. Many women have just come in droves and supported this project. So many have already donated. Many have donated multiple times.
Yep.
Some of the women on Twitter would just, sometimes just send me, 10 quid and say, get outside, go get yourself an ice cream or something. Just get outside, stop looking at that shit on the computer 24/7. I can't even use words to describe how grateful I am.
Yeah. But it's expensive. Filmmaking's expensive. It isn't. People don't realize how much it costs to make a film. Even with all this technology that's available, it's still expensive because you do have to outsource experts.
Yes, absolutely. And I take pride in always employing female creative people in my film crew, always make an effort to just, wait it a week, a month to get that female creative to work for me, even if there are, 10 men available who don't even care about our politics. It would just be so easy to just work with them. For them, it's just a job. They might just do it and go away with it. But I don't want that. I want a female participation in this. And I know for a fact that it will show in the film. It will just somehow show in the film. The way women approach this topic, it's a stroke of the brush. I don't even care. There is magic when women come together. So like you said, it is an expensive industry, and there is so much that I have taught myself to do over the course of time because people are refusing to work with me. But there is still only 24 hours a day, and I'm only human, and I get burnt out too, right? I get burnt out a lot. I have to step away, cuddle with my dog, and unwind myself a little bit, and then jump right back into the cesspool. But funding this project would enable me to outsource some aspects of it. Is it the storm? Is it the thunder?
No, it's my kids have just come home and my dog's gone mental. Yeah.
No,
Very
that's-
vocal.
yeah, no, I love it. I love it. You know how
Yeah.
much I love animals. I love it.
She hates men. My Chihuahua hates men. My other dogs
Wow.
like everybody, but my Chihuahua despises all males, including my son. It's so funny. Yeah. But so if you got to find
Chihuahuas hating on males is extra funny because they're already so jumpy and hyper and everything. And if they have a particular hatred towards male, they probably express it in even more funnier ways. I would imagine.
Yeah. She's tiny and tough, like, and I'm 5 foot, so I can kind of relate a little bit. So no, I really, she entertains me no end. But so is your fundraiser linked to your Twitter profile or to Googling your? Oh, good, because I'm sure, I've been trying to say to people say, well, how can we help? How can we support the cause?
Yes.
And we're sort of at a point in this ideology where it's going to be legal matters, it's going to be making films, it's going to be like forcing ourselves into the media almost, and all of those things are expensive. Taking someone to court, defending yourself in court is really expensive. Defending your rights at a human rights tribunal is really expensive. So I'm trying to sort of, I'm on a low income and I support a whole bunch of different things through GoFundMe's and Patreons and stuff like that. $3 a month, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but spread over hundreds or thousands of people, that's a shitload of money. And I would much rather women did that, gave up the cost of a cup, the cost of a cup of coffee, than we're shelling out $100, $1,000. We shouldn't have to pay for it to get our rights back.
No,
but we can encourage creative people. We can encourage people to fight back by helping resource them with a little bit here and there, and if I can, if having you on this show could encourage some people to, maybe forgo 1 cup of coffee and chuck it into your coffers so we get this film made, because we're all going to benefit from it.
Absolutely.
Being from a family that's been impacted by the patriarch deciding he's a woman and leaving a trail of destruction and devastation, which will be quite familiar to people on this channel because I whinge about it all the time. Like it is such an important thing. These invisible abused women, to bring them out from the shadows and say, this is what's happening. If we can get behind it, it'd be fantastic. And because you've got Dysphoric already, people can watch that and see that their money is going to someone, that this is in capable hands, that you'll present this, that in a way that is empowering for women.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, women are at the center of all of my films, and I want to do justice, to this project as well, because I'm a complete stranger to these women when they first agreed to speak with me on Zoom. And yet the relationship that we've managed to, the friendship, the sisterhood that we've managed to create after having that one conversation, it was as if we knew each other for so many years or something like that. They have basically just given me their time and opened up their hearts in ways that they've probably not said these things to, I don't know, their therapists even. Some of them have said that to me, like, it's just so comforting to talk to you. It feels as if you're such a good listener. I could just keep talking to you at all times. When they say that, I feel immensely grateful that women can feel that they can trust me, but also there is this instant pang of dread and doom and anxiety that I should do right by them, that they have. Oh, that pressure, it feels sometimes so difficult to carry. I know that a film like this has never been done, so I put this film together. I know that women will welcome it, but I don't know if I can ever qualify that as that, this is the film, or this is because I constantly feel like, oh, I could have done this, or I could have done that. I could have included this. But that fight is my internal fight. But I want to say that I will always make it about women, and the film is going to be there, just like Dysphoric is. It's just going to be there for us. Anybody can do anything with it. Show it to their schools, colleges, universities, offices, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's for us. It's the most democratic way of creating resources for this fight, actually.
So we might hold a when you finish the film, we might hold a premiere or something here, and then we can all chip in $5 each for your next film.
Yes, absolutely.
The
I'm not
pressure
stopping.
is on. So
Yeah.
what do you
I'm not
think?
stopping.
Yeah, what will be
No.
next after Transwidows? Have you got any ideas what you'd like to tackle next?
Oh my God, no. No, there are so many ideas right now. I haven't really sort of it's like the stories will pull me towards them. That's what I think. Because Dysphoric, I didn't think I was going to make Dysphoric at all. It was peak lockdown. I was in front of my computer. I didn't think I was going to make it. And just like that, I have finished it. And now I'm already making the next film. I did not think my life would go in this manner at all. I mean, I've always wanted to make films and centered women, but I did not think that my life would turn into this trajectory at all. And yet here I am. I feel like this film happened in a sort of way that it just all arrived together. I'm not a believer of fate or any of those supernatural things or superstitious things or anything like that. But with the topics that I choose for making films, somehow it works out. It just works out. So I believe that if I give it my 100%, which I will obviously do, and put this film out, the next film will ask to be made. Yeah. Oh, amazing stuff. I'm really, really looking forward to this one. It's going to be fantastic. Well, we've been chatting for an hour, and like everyone who's spoken to you, I could talk to you all day. But no, it's been a real joy, and I'm really excited about this film. It is really, really important, and if I could urge my listeners to get behind you and try and get it finished, be great. Be absolutely fantastic. And as we chip away at the mainstream more and more, things like this that we can present our arguments, present our experiences are becoming even more important. So this is great. And thank you, on behalf of all the families affected by this stuff out there. So we'll pop a link in the comments, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Please like, share and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Bye.